Good evening, everybody. This is CJ with the GOAT Sports Talk. Of course, we know about the big trade that just went down today. Kyrie Irving has officially been traded to the Boston Celtics, as we've rumored for some time that one of the best deals that they actually had on the table was to take probably the Boston Celtics offer. At the time, I really looked at it that they should have probably went after, possibly Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley, or a combination of Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas, as long as an unprotected next pick, which they ended up getting that. I think that's part of a good deal, especially for the long term of the Cleveland Cavaliers. They also get a couple of players that if for some reason LeBron were to leave, they could still kind of build around. And we'll kind of just go a little bit into, what I think about each player in terms of how they fit. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk about Kyrie Irving and his situation now with going over to Boston Celtics. He does have 2 years and an additional year of a player option, which he can opt out of in the 2019 and 20 season. However, it's something to think about if you're Boston, about whether or not this is a good deal. And to a certain degree, I do believe that I would say this is a good deal for them. The only thing that I probably would have a problem with if I'm a Boston Celtics fan is the fact that you let go of 3 of your, young, talented players. Al Horford, to me, is not considered in that class because he is over the age of 30. He's not going to get any better. And I think that his particular position, as far as the way he plays the center position, is not going to be viable in the foreseeable future. Now, he did improve his three-point shooting, but he's not a good rebounder anymore. So you lose that. You don't gain anything with him being a center because he's not really a big volume rebounder. He's now become more of a stretch center that can occasionally hit the three-point shot. And I just think in today's NBA, it's just not a valuable position, especially with some of the teams that they'll be going up against. So now you got a team that is really largely centered around, a non-versatile Al Horford. And then you got, of course, we know that they went and got picked up, Gordon from Utah under free agency. And Gordon Hayward, to me, is not a player that can match up with LeBron or even really dominate a matchup with LeBron anyway in a 7-game series. And then now you have Kyrie Irving. So to me, you gained some players, but to me, it's like what they lost overall just doesn't make sense. And this is the way I look at it. You lose Isaiah Thomas, who was dropping about 28 points a game, and Crowder, who was dropping 13 points a game and not even really being, nothing more than probably the third or fourth option at best. He was a great three-point shooter this past season at around 38% from the three-point line. So that's one of his underrated parts of Jay Crowder's game, is that he can hit the three-point shot, and he's a very strong and solid defender. So I think LeBron likes having a guy like him on his side, but I think that losing Kyrie Irving, even though Kyrie Irving is not a good defender, he's 6'3", and he is an honest enough defender, at least just body-wise, that, if you help him out with different, trappings and, rotations and things like that, you can help him out when you're going up against a Golden State to kind of sometimes, at times, slow down, Steph Curry. With now having Isaiah Thomas, it's a whole different ballgame. But as far as with that, maybe defensively or maybe from a matchup perspective, I think if Boston feels like they were to go through the next level, they might feel that they would have a matchup between, I guess in some way in their own mind, that they can match up Gordon against Durant and make an honest series out of it. And of course, they got Kyrie. I'm just wondering, if you're Kyrie, what in the world happened that you would rather have gone to a team that now, even though you'll be going up against probably Cleveland, if you're able to look, the Boston team as currently constructed, I don't even think is a guarantee to even get past even a team on the level of like a Washington Wizards. Like, just really think about that for a second. So to me, I would take, even right now, the Washington Wizards over the Boston Celtics, because the 3 players that they lost, to me, does not count what they gained in Gordon Hayward and what they lost in Isaiah Thomas. What I mean by that is what Isaiah Thomas gave production-wise is no different than what Kyrie Irving gained production-wise. Now, we do know that they have two different styles of play, but I'm strictly speaking from a production standpoint. They both average under 6 assists a game. They both average 25 plus points a game. They're both not good defenders. Now, from a perspective of an offensive perspective, as far as dribble penetration, Kyrie Irving can do that. So maybe that opens up other things that maybe Brad Stevenson wants to do from an offensive standpoint, and it remains to be seen. And maybe that's what could be going on at the next level. We do know that they got Tatum as well. So as far as from a backcourt mate, I like Tatum at this point in his career because he's very polished game for such a young player. And I think that he is able to play off the ball from Kyrie. So when you look at that situation, I like that backcourt. That's a very good backcourt. And it reminds me somewhat of a Klay Thompson type of player in Tatum that is actually better off the dribble. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops over the course of the season. But he's going to have to mature very fast for a team that's expected to compete for the Eastern Conference Finals. Then you look at Gordon. Okay, that's a good addition. Hayward, we'll see what happens. So it just remains to be seen what's going to happen overall. Of course, they still got Brown as well, Jaylen Brown. So if you look at the development of him, maybe there's something that's going on, and it remains to be seen. Now, let's go to Cleveland. If you're LeBron James, do you really like this deal? I think it really all depends on one thing. I think in part it depends on the season, the offseason acquisitions that they made. We know they picked up Jeff Green. Can Jeff Green even play to his ability and be a serviceable rotation player or a guy that they can count on certain nights to put up 15 to 20 points in a game? It remains to be seen. Another pickup, Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose had a very good year last year, despite his season ending in an injury that is not career-threatening. He should be able to bounce back. He does do have a dribble penetration ability still. He's not on the level of a Kyrie as far as finishing around the rim. So that is going to be something different because Kyrie just has such a great layup and rim package. But as far as attacking the basket, he's as good as anybody in the league as far as Derrick Rose. He can get to the paint really well, and that should open up the floor for the shooters. So from that perspective, they don't lose much. But I feel that Isaiah Thomas playing off the ball, maybe it does add a wrinkle in their offensive package to have another player that's on the floor that can actually play without the ball. And that will help out with LeBron. So I'm expecting a lot of screens and open shots for Isaiah Thomas. And Jay Crowder, I think, is a good combination. So when I look at it, overall, I think that both sides do get a little bit of something. I just feel that the domination, that the peak of Kyrie when he's playing his game at a high level, I just think it's a lot higher ceiling than what Isaiah Thomas can bring. And it's really down to the style of play. Not that Isaiah Thomas can't drop 40 or 50. He can do that. But the way he gets it is a little bit different than maybe the way Kyrie gets it. Defensively, he's a liability. So I'm wondering how they're going to shadow that. But it's a very interesting thing. I have to see how the season starts. I really feel that Cleveland could have waited and got a better deal. But when you examine it, I understand why they pulled the trigger. In part because one of the players that they wanted to get, which was basically Jeff Teague, and a deal where they could get Jeff Teague and possibly Andrew Wiggins and send Kyrie Irving over, that would have been a very tough deal because one, they'd have to wait till damn near December or a certain amount of days before Minnesota will be able to unload that contract and send it over to Cleveland. And that, to me, would have been the best deal that they could have had. But I like this deal somewhat for Cleveland and for Boston. I think it works out for both of them. But when I look at the NBA Finals perspective, if Cleveland runs into the Golden State Warriors again, they're going to have other guys that are going to have to step up. And I don't know if I could trust, if I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, that you can get the kind of game that you will probably need, games you need to get from a Crowder to match what they got going on. But if they can get something out of Crowder, that starting lineup I'll tell you this, Cleveland's starting lineup is going to look very beastly on paper. When you factor in, you could have Crowder potentially, on the floor. I mean, heck, are you going to even bring them off the bench? So some of the problems that they have as far as from the depth and rotation, I like some of the problems they have because they do have a little bit of something. It would have been interesting if somehow Cleveland could have gotten Patrick Beverley over this offseason or Lou Williams. If something like that could have happened and if they didn't go to the Clippers, I think that one of those two players in addition to these guys would have made for a very interesting lineup, and I think for a very interesting offensive repertoire and weaponry. And depending on who you got with Patrick Beverley, or if you got Lou Williams from the Rockets, either one of those that ended up going, of course, to the Clippers, I think you could have had a very interesting team. And I think that with the team play pieces that they got right now, I believe that Cleveland is not done yet. I think that they have the pieces to move something, to make another move. If they wanted to move that first round pick of the Nets, especially if the Nets start off bad and a team that has a good talent, they were willing to take on maybe another contract, knowing that they can get a great young talent with that draft pick that they got from the Nets. I think that Cleveland has actually made a very good move to actually make another move moving forward that can create a team that could probably compete better against the Golden State Warriors. And that's why I think that this is a very good move. And I think if you're a LeBron, and if you look in the short term of what could potentially occur if they move another pick, I think that if you're Cleveland and you're the GM, you're the owner, I don't believe that in any way you would want to move anything that you have right now because for LeBron, being that LeBron might not be here next year. So I think from that perspective, I like the move for Cleveland long term. If LeBron leaves, you could probably extend Isaiah Thomas, or you can let him walk. Maybe you keep Crowder and you give him a deal, and you basically play out the Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love contracts. You draft probably a top 5 player, and now you're probably still a playoff team in the East, even with LeBron leaving in the next year or two. It's still a good deal for you. So I think that Cleveland made out like a bandit with this move. I believe that Boston, in conclusion, got a superstar player that it needs to be accounted for on the floor at all times. And I think that they needed a guy that can take somebody off the bounce, shoot the three, and get into the paint and open up things for Brad Stevens' offense the way that they probably want. And it should be very interesting. Brad Stevens is a very innovative coach. And with them getting Tatum, I just like that move. And I think that Danny Ainge, I know he wanted to get Josh Jackson, but I think that when you look at what they have in Tatum and how polished he is, I think that I think in the long run, I think they're going to like that they got Tatum over Josh Jackson, because at the end of the day, a player like Josh Jackson is only going to go as far as he wants to be great at. And he has some skill level development that he still needs to get to. And that's really going to be all depending on how great he wants to be. And you can never know that about a player once they start making money and they're living the high life, and you don't know how great they truly would want to be in the long run. So I think that Jason Tatum is a good pickup for them, and I think the moves that they make, I think that this is literally an equal trade for them in the short and long term for both teams. I think the only loss that this could be for a team as far as in the long run, I think in the long run it can really truly only hurt Boston if Kyrie opts out of his deal, a couple of years from now, and decides to go elsewhere, and now you got, you're stuck with pretty much just, a couple of players, and you still got to go chase another guy again. So I think that if you're Kyrie, in conclusion, is it going to be worth you leaving Cleveland and not going to the finals potentially for the next 2 years, or the next year at least, to basically leave a situation that was almost a guaranteed for you to go to the finals barring injury? That remains to be seen. So we'll see how it is. I'm interested in seeing the reaction from Kyrie Irving and from LeBron James. It seemed to have been a personal situation, so it'll be interesting to circle that calendar when the game comes with Cleveland against Boston. It'll be a very interesting situation and matchup, and we'll see how they react towards one another, being that they're not on the same team anymore. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.